the Americans with Disabilities Act, ADA, and your rights.
Now that you understand what you should do while in court, let's talk about the Americans with Disabilities Act, which is often called the ADA. Throughout this video, you watched a courtroom of people who all knew sign language. Of course, you will not find such a courtroom in the real world. What you will most likely find is a courtroom that has hearing people who do not know sign language. You need to make sure that you get the communication access to understand what is happening in the courtroom. The ADA is a law that has been in place since 1990. The ADA is a federal law that all states have to follow. The ADA requires equal access for people with disabilities, including people who are deaf and hard of hearing. The ADA is broken down into 4 sections called titles. Title I covers people with disabilities in the workplace. Employers must make reasonable accommodations for workers who have disabilities. For example, the provision of a TTY, closed captioning, interpreter, and amplified phone. Title II covers equal access to state and local government agencies, including schools, courts, prisons, parks, and libraries. Title II is very important for this video because it is the part of ADA that requires the courts to provide equal access for the deaf and hard of hearing. Title III covers places of business, such as a doctor's office, lawyer's office, hotels, theaters, restaurants, private schools, conferences, nonprofit organizations, daycare centers, and any business open to the public. For Title II and Title III, if a deaf or hard of hearing person requires accommodation to understand the service being offered, then that change must be provided. For example, if you require an interpreter to get effective communication, the court must provide an interpreter. If you meet with a lawyer and an interpreter is required to have effective communication, the lawyer must provide an interpreter. The deaf person should never pay for the cost of the interpreter in those situations. Title IV establishes the relay service in all 50 states and with all national telephone companies. The relay service makes sure that deaf, hard of hearing, and other people with disabilities can have conversations through the telephone system using the relay system with a hearing person. This service is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Any person can use this service as many times as needed. Now, the most important part of ADA. How does a court decide what you need to help understand its proceedings and to help you communicate? You must tell them. It is your responsibility to tell them. You must tell the court what you need to understand the court proceedings. If you require a sign language interpreter, the ADA says that the court must provide a qualified sign language interpreter. The interpreter must be effective, meaning that you can understand the interpreter and the interpreter can understand you. The interpreter must also be accurate, which means that the right information is interpreted correctly. The interpreter must also be impartial, which means that a family member of the deaf person cannot be the interpreter. The interpreter needs to be able to use the right sign vocabulary to make sure that you understand the court proceedings. If you require assistive listening equipment, the ADA requires that the court provide any such equipment to help you understand the proceedings. If you require captioning, the ADA says that the court must provide it. It is very important for you to understand what happens while you are in court, and you have a right under the ADA to understand everything that happens in the courtroom.